Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Biz 417's virtual B School. I'm Logan Aguirre, president and publisher. I almost said associate publisher. I got an upgrade in the last month and I'm not used to saying it yet. Publisher at Biz 417. This is our fourth virtual B School, and although we wish we could all be together in person, we do appreciate your flexibility and also that of our panelists and our sponsors as we continue to do this virtually. Before we dive in, I'd like to recognize our presenting sponsor, OTC Center for Workforce Development, and our contributing sponsors, American National and Blue Current Credit Union. This virtual B School would not be possible without our partners. And joining us this afternoon from OTC Center for Workforce Development is Executive Director Sherry Coker. Sherry, help kick us off with a few words.
Great, thank you so much, Logan. It is truly my pleasure to represent the OTC Center for Workforce Development for today's B School event. You know, we as leaders have a responsibility to continue meaningful diversity and inclusion conversations for as long as it takes to reach unity in diversity, which Mahatma Gandhi states would be the beauty and the test of our civilization. OTC has long been a part of diversity and inclusion dialogues in the business community, and these discussions have been instrumental for our development of training opportunities that truly result in a more open, accepting, and affirming culture. Starting in February of next year, the CWD will launch a new 3-part weekly virtual series entitled Candid Conversations Around Diversity and Inclusion. And we're proud to have Reggie Harris, who happens to be a multifaceted strategic trainer and motivational speaker, lead these hour-long lunchtime sessions that promise to be challenging and candid, just like today. More importantly, they're going to offer practical solutions to enhance success in relationships and workplace dynamics. Now, we'll be sending out save-the-date information about these events closer to the end of this year, first part of next year. So in the meantime, I am truly happy to turn the mic back over to you, Logan, to learn more from today's expert panelists. Logan?
Thank you, Sherry. I'm excited to learn more about your candid conversations. Thank you for sharing that with us. You guys are a great community partner, so I'm proud to hear that. As you're watching this afternoon, you can participate in the conversation and share your top takeaways on social media using the hashtag BizBSchool. Or if you have questions that come to mind, you can submit them in the chat box right there on your screen. Make sure you send the question to all panelists so we can all see it and be a part of the conversation. And if we have time, we'll weave those questions in today. So without further ado, we'll get started. Today we're talking with 4 local leaders that we featured in our September-October cover story entitled, What Can We Be? Each of them are striving to improve the diversity and inclusion narrative in our region. With us today, we have Christa Moss. Christa is the Assistant United States Attorney in the United States Attorney's Office, Western District of Missouri. That is not a mouthful at all. Doug Neff is the Southwest Region CEO and Chairman at Commerce Bank. We have Bill Nelson, owner and founder of Springfield Driving School. And finally, Brandon Taylor, Senior Business Process Analyst at Jack Henry & Associates. Welcome, everybody. To get started, we're just going to have each of you give us a little elevator pitch on your business and your role there. And also just if you could share with us how you relieve stress during a difficult day. We've had a lot of those this year. So we'll start off, Christa, with you.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I have to say, as a United States attorney, I can't give you a pitch per se on my business because I don't speak on behalf of my office. But as a federal attorney, I am sworn to defend and protect the United States Constitution. So my role, I mean, that's just a fancy way of saying if someone sues the United States, its agencies or its employees, I do civil litigation. So I protect and represent those agencies. And my favorite part of the job is that I really am striving for justice. I have the opportunity, I'm actually empowered to do what is right. So it's more than just the money and the issues, but I am constantly aware of how my decisions and my litigation activities, reflect on the parties that are in litigation against us and how it reflects on the United States Attorney for our district, Tim Garrison, and how it reflects on my colleagues and the Department of Justice. So that's my role. And what do I do to relieve stress? I would like to say that, you know, I get a run-in to relieve stress, but unfortunately, pandemic life has made, I think, binging Suits and Netflix a much more effective remedy. So that is currently what I do to relieve stress.
Thank you for your honesty. I know we all appreciate that and 100% relate. Okay, Doug.
Yeah, hey Logan. Hello everybody, and it's great to be here, and it's great to be part of this panel today. We have some great folks on here, and I'm humbled to be with them. So as Logan said, I'm the regional CEO for Commerce Bank in our Southwest region. I've been a lifer at Commerce. I've been here almost 30 years. I know I don't quite look that old, but that's shocking, I guess. But so Commerce is exactly what it says in its title. It's bank, right? We're a full range bank. We really worry a lot about our communities and our customers, and our culture's like very strong. We're 155 years old. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about kind of what we are in Southwest Missouri. We've been in Southwest Missouri since the mid 60s. We were actually a North Springfield bank originally up on Commercial Street. So a lot of long history and a lot of great employees over the years. What do I do to relieve stress? That's a really great question. It's pretty simple. Sometimes I have to get up and go for a walk from my desk, and that's probably part of it. But the other thing is, you know, we all have a camera anymore, right? And we keep pictures. And believe it or not, I like to flip through pictures that remind me of good memories of my kids and my family and the lake. I'm a big Table Rock Lake guy too, so that's a big stress reliever. So that's what I do: look at pictures and remind me of happy times.
I love that. That's a simple thing to do. Simple and free. Thank you. Okay, Bill. Oh no, Bill is mute. Bill, you're muted. We'll come back to you in just a second while we get you unmuted. Brandon?
Yes, hi, everyone. I first of all, I want to thank you all for the opportunity to be part of such a wonderful event, especially surrounding an important topic and one that's near and dear to each one of us. I'm a senior business process analyst at Jack Henry & Associates. I typically explain my duties like this. I focus on continuous improvement within our organization. I work with senior level managers and executive level leaders across our organization to help achieve their business objectives. I help their business units to be more effective and more efficient, and that typically helps the associates enjoy what they do all the more, right? One could also say that I work to increase associate value, and everybody wants to be valued wherever they work. Jack Henry, in short, is a technology company that services the financial industry. We provide the software and the services that a financial institution, whether it be a bank or a credit union, needs to run. Also, to relieve stress, that's also a good question. I do one of four things. One, since everybody's remote for the most part, I leave my office and I go hang out with my family, see my kids and my wife, or I watch lawn videos. I'm a big lawn care nut. Or thirdly, I tinker around with electronics in my office. I'm always doing something along those lines. Or lastly, I visit the gym, and I typically get a good workout in just to take my mind off of what I'm doing. And I think that's the biggest relief, if it's just doing something else. So that's me. And I think that's a lot of fun in my opinion.
Those are all really good stress relievers. Do you actually mow your own lawn, or you just watch mowing videos?
I mow it, I take care of it, I feed it. I just put new grass seed in, so I overseeded my lawn. So you see, I'm saying the technical things here. So don't get me started.
I can tell you're really you're getting really excited talking about this. So I can tell that you're passionate about it.
Fun stuff.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Okay, Bill, last but not least.
Thank you. Well, I own and operate Springfield Driving School here in Springfield, Missouri, business that I started about a year ago. And, it's going very well. We've, struggled to kind of figure some things out, get our feet on, get our legs under us, so to speak. But, you know, I have to say that in starting the business, I did consult with some individuals that were already doing the same thing. A gentleman by the name of Roy Green owns and operates his own business here in Springfield and had been doing that for a number of years. And I contacted Roy. He's a retired educator, and I could not have asked for a better mentor. He willingly met with me, opened his records up to me, told me, you know, things to watch for and what to make sure you do and don't do, and really helped me get off to a good start. So the business is going well. We've obviously had to shut down for COVID for a period of time, but other than that, it's going very well. One of the pluses for me is that now that schools are operating, you know, with some students all virtual, with some part virtual, part in attendance, it's given students a little more flexibility with their schedules during the week, which helps my business because they're able to allot some time to come and actually work with me, as opposed to previously, it was mostly weekends that they were available. So it's really helped my business to grow. What do I do for stress, to relieve stress? I walk. I like to walk early in the morning. I'm an early riser, and I get out when the air is a little cooler. And then I like to listen to music. And I have grandkids that are within 4 blocks of my house. So I get to spend a lot of time with grandkids.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. So just to frame the conversation a little bit, earlier this year, geographer and urbanism expert Joel Kotkin was quoted in an article stating that before the pandemic, millennials began moving away from costly cities and towards suburban and second-tier cities, or cities with populations less than 500,000. He also wrote this prediction in a study published by Bentonville's Heartland Institute, an organization that focuses on economic revival. The study focused on why some cities, including Springfield, are appealing to younger populations. For each city researched, the report called out major roadblocks, things that could halt this interest. And for Springfield, that main roadblock is the region's lack of diversity and inclusion. We're all here today because we recognize that Southwest Missouri is predominantly white and that this is now a workforce issue too. To change the narrative, businesses have to be a part of the conversation. So I would just like to start with you, Christa, how each of you approach these conversations, both in your workplace and in your personal life. Christa, knowing that you can't represent you're not representing your employer when you're giving this answer, but just how you approach these conversations.
Yeah, so I'll address this by first talking about the legal profession in general, because it's been labeled, you know, one of the least diverse professions in the nation. So, you know, obviously being a person of color, ethnicity and color are very important to me. But when I'm having this conversation, I think it's really important for people to understand that diversity is all encompassing. It's important for us to discuss things about sex and orientation and ability and mindset and background, culture and experience, and socioeconomic status. All of these types of traits are what make a workplace vibrant and create this idea that there's so much beyond what we all could ever know within our personal experiences. Having that kind of diversity and striving for that kind of diversity is really, really important to value in our workplace. So for me, when I'm approaching these conversations, I find that it's really relevant for me to be proactive and active. And so I get involved in leadership positions in my state and local bar because I recognize that we have to push these conversations forward. So being involved in leadership positions gives me a platform to create policy and to push policy and to be someone who can implement educational programs for lawyers. Those are the types of things that keep these conversations going. In my personal life, I approach these conversations with a lot of grace and patience, because it's very easy, I think, especially in our society today, to get fatigued and to feel like maybe you're obligated to be engaged in these conversations. But for me, it's more than an obligation. It's an intense motivation, because I realize that I am someone that's equipped, that has experience, that has knowledge, that's well informed to be a leader on these topics. And so if I allow myself to be discouraged or frustrated about the conversation that's happening and convince myself that it's easier or best to stay quiet, then I'm really losing out on an opportunity to influence the world around me. So in my personal life, I approach these conversations by just continuing to have them day in and day out, no matter how I'm personally feeling, knowing that I am someone who can share my truth and reality in a way that's undeniable.
Beautiful job. My goodness. Thank you so much. Okay, Doug, we'll move to you. Same question.
Yeah, I don't know who decided that I have to follow Christa
I
today.
know, I'm so sorry.
Very helpful. So I'm a lot more simple speaking probably than Christa, but when I think about either work or personal, one of the things that I think is super important is to listen and to learn. When you're in a conversation, one of the more important things you can do is just listen and learn. And so, you know, I'm not a diverse person, right? I don't have a difference. I'm a majority person, right? So those items that I need to learn about and listen about are incredibly important. I also think that, like, whether it's work or whether it's a personal discussion, you know, transparency and genuineness and having accountability about this subject is really important. And don't be afraid to have those uncomfortable conversations. I believe that our experiences all lead us somewhere, right? So putting yourself in a situation that may not be comfortable for you is the only way to really learn. So, you know, that's one of the things at work that we really try to do, is encourage people to be open and to learn from the people around them and people in our community. And, you know, sometimes that's very difficult for folks. Being uncomfortable is hard, right? I think it takes some maturity and age to kind of figure that out. But I do, if you can let yourself be uncomfortable, you're going to learn a lot about somebody that you didn't know anything about before. And I think about this from a relationship standpoint. I really believe that personal relationships and getting to know somebody on an individual level break down a lot of barriers that exist. Or, you know, we all have unconscious bias and we don't do it purposefully, but it happens, right? So figuring that out in your own mind and being self-aware is like a really important part of this process. You know, I'll talk about work just for a little bit. One of the things about work, I have these concepts that I think about as it relates kind of to our culture and our company. And so we all have to be curious, and we have to be curious about where other people came from and what their diversity is. And diversity may not be something you see. It may be something that's in your heart even, or, you know, the way you were raised. Diversity comes in a lot of different, and Christa said that just a second ago, there's a lot of definitions around diversity. It's not as simple as skin color, right? We have to be accountable. We have to own the way we act and the way we treat people. We have to be able to do that. We have to lead by example. What you permit, you promote. I mean, we have to hold at work, we have to hold our employees accountable for doing the right thing. And then we also have to think about the team. And from a work perspective, having a bigger, more diverse team leads to better innovation, it leads to better decision-making, and it leads to a much stronger, healthier organization. So in these conversations, those are the kind of topics that I try to bring up and, you know, try to focus our team around here at Commerce.
Thank you, Doug. Okay, Bill.
You know, there's so many areas you could go to with this. You know, as an individual, and I'm probably the only one on this panel that can speak to this, having started my formal education in a segregated school, separate but equal, and then transitioning from that to an integrated school system, and then ultimately moving on beyond that to a different city for the sake of improvement. And then, you know, starting my career in law enforcement with State Patrol. I was only the fourth Black person to be hired as a state trooper in the state of Missouri. And, you know, state police agencies across the country have been some of the last to have inclusion, diversity and inclusion. And they've still got a ways to go, quite frankly. But having said that, you know, as my life started out in small town America, segregated schools, you learn to be two people. You learn to be the person that you truly are, and then the person that coped with what society threw at you. And so you bring experiences from that. And, you know, so as I moved up the ladder, retiring as a captain with the State Patrol, as I moved up the ladder, you know, it became increasingly clear that we had to have a voice, and we had to use that voice and use our platform to make a difference. And so I continue to do that. I continue to strive to do that. Even though I'm a sole proprietor, I'm the only employee in the business. I've never forgotten the fact that, you know, as a state trooper, the last 15 years I worked there, I was in charge of the driver testing program for the state of Missouri. And so that's something that probably everyone on this panel and all those listening, you never forget when you get that driver's license, when you go to take that test, and, you know, the fear you have about whether you're going to pass or not, and how good you feel when you accomplish that. So I bring that to my job today. You know, a big part of that is trying to put people at ease and make them feel comfortable. So that, I mean, and that's essential, because they're nervous. They're going to make mistakes. The parents bring them to me because the parents can't handle the stress, and the parents yell and they get, you know, and it doesn't work. So they bring them to a professional that can do it in a calm manner, reassuring manner, and help get the points across. So doing that in my business, that translates really to society as a whole. And, you know, I see other businesses struggling to try to have more diversity and inclusion. And, you know, sometimes they're successful, sometimes not. And sometimes the reason they're not is because, you know, they continue to do the same thing and expect to get a different result. And sometimes we have to look outside the box and think outside the box for ways that we can improve. And, you know, I've been a little taken aback in Springfield by the fact that I don't see, sometimes when I go in my bank, the lack of diversity is kind of stands out. And I would assume, with as many colleges and universities as we have here, that there would be opportunities for mentorship programs, you know, for ways to reach out and bring people in that are, you know, just not like all the rest of us, you know, someone that's a little different. I think one of the reasons that I was hired at Mercy was that I inquired about their certified driver trainer program. I had never heard of a hospital doing that. And in talking to them about that program, they said, well, do you have a child that needs lessons? And, well, no, I don't. I saw the ad and I became curious. And I said, tell me how you go about hiring your instructors. And they said, well, most of them are retired high school coaches or driver's ed teachers. They said, are you a retired educator? And I said, of sorts. And she said, well, okay, I'll take the bait. What does that mean? And I said, well, I ran the driver testing program for the state for 15 years. She said, oh, we might be interested in talking to you. And, you know, I think because of the fact that I brought a different perspective, she was interested. And then after we did the interview, she said, well, you know, we don't have any openings right now, but would you be willing to complete an application if we decide to add to our staff? And so I think she saw the opportunity then to have a little more diversity in her staff. And so I think that's what other businesses have to do, is they have to look for those opportunities and take advantage of them, reach out to areas that they may not typically have explored in the past.
Thank you. Thank you for your perspective and sharing your story with us. Okay, Brandon.
So I'm going to echo a lot of what Christa, Doug, and Bill have said. But one thing Bill said that resonates with me is kind of having two people, right? You're one way at work or professionally, you're another way personally or in your own time. And much of my history has been somewhat to that in my professional career. And maybe to some degree, that's everyone. You don't act the same at home as you do at the office. But to a greater extent, I feel it's more for me, and I speak for myself. You know, there are many conversations that one could have that you refrain from saying certain things, right? Because you don't want to be truly authentic, you know, but you don't want to be a liar, right? You don't want to be untrue to self. And so learning how to be authentic and explaining yourself, and that's both sides. You know, one of the conversations that we can have with other people who do not have our background, who are not Black or Latino or whatever you may be, the wide range of diversity, is giving your perspective, right? And the person who's listening to accept it rather. I believe there's a difference between opinion and perspective. And I say this quite often. Opinion, anyone can give that. I can give an opinion about the same exact thing 2 days in a row and they be different. But my perspective is much more in tune with my background, what I've been through, my experiences. I speak from it from an educated point of view because I lived it. And so when I have these conversations and being truly authentic to myself and who I represent, which is me, first of all, I can give them my perspective and that'd be okay. And they understand that this is what I've lived. And as I shared with you, it's an education for you. And it goes both ways. Most of the time when, you know, Bill said this, when you walk into a place and you don't see diversity at all, there are offices that I've walked into. There are many rooms I've walked into in Springfield since I've been here since 2002, where I am the only Black person there. But that's the history that I've lived much of my life. I've always been the only Black person, right? And to a degree, that frames your point of view, right? How you perceive things, how you talk, how you behave, right? And from the other way around, from someone who may be a different color or who may be Caucasian, especially in Springfield, they've known it the other way. They've always seen people that they look like, that they can relate to. It's a different view when someone enters a room where you can't truly relate to someone, at least on a race basis, right? So that is part of the conversation that I have, and it really bridges the gap because it's educational. And as long as we can learn from one another, build that relationship where I care about you, you care about me, the tension ceases and it's more us becoming one as human beings and less about how I look, where my strengths are not, are more on par with someone else's instead of my differences. So that's how we, at least me personally, how I help out as far as the professional side of things and my personal side of things in conversations.
I really like the opinion versus perspective. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a real aha moment and something that, you know, can just, I think, help all of us when we're, like Doug said, doing as much listening as humanly possible. So thank you guys so much. You each shared such wonderful perspectives on that. And I really appreciate all your answers there. As a business community, when we're looking to maybe recruit potential candidates and wanting to recruit a more diverse workforce, it can seem a little bit like an uphill battle. A lot of the things we talked about in the feature that you guys helped with is about the first impression, especially for people searching us online. So Christa, the feature talks a lot about your husband, Maurice, and he was recruited for months before you guys visited for an interview. So could you talk a little about how these recruiting efforts maybe swayed your decision to move, and then what your experience has been like and why you continue to stay in 417 land?
Yeah, definitely. Great question. We had no reason or incentive to move to Springfield, had never thought about ever living in this part of Missouri. So I remember the phone call that I got from my husband very vividly. A year prior, we'd actually left Kansas City and had moved back to my hometown, Tulsa, Oklahoma, where my family was. We had just bought a house. I was pregnant. And we both had really great jobs, and Maurice was in a really wonderful federal career. And so I'm sitting at home, and I'm actually, I think, working on some new home project and thinking about how nice it's going to be that my mom can come and help with the baby when the baby gets here. And I get this random call from Maurice, who is at an energy conference giving a presentation, and he's like, "You won't believe what happened." And I'm like, what happened? And he's like, "I just learned that there's a position in Springfield, and I've been asked if we'd ever been interested in moving to Springfield." And I kind of just laughed it off, because I was like, this happens. He constantly gets these offers to apply to these positions because he's got this limited skill set and knowledge. So he just wants me to know how flattered he is that he got this opportunity. And so I kind of, I didn't think it was serious. And I just told him, "Did you tell them we're very good where we are? We're very comfortable. Like, I'm not leaving. I'm pregnant." And he comes home, and I just remember that, after having been gone for a week, like, his first question back to me when he gets home is, "So what do you think about this opportunity?" And I was like, "What do you mean? What do I think about this opportunity?" It's just why we don't need to move right now. We don't know anything about Springfield. Like, that's not something we've ever considered. But the general counsel of city utilities at the time just kept continuing to reach out to him and encouraging him to apply, and communicating to him what a wonderful company CU was, and how Maurice's talents and skills would be really valuable for the company, for where they were and where they wanted to go. So finally I was like, well, in my mind, I was like, we'll humor them. We'll go there, you apply, you do an interview, but like, what are the odds that this is going to come to fruition? Because we're in the perfect scenario right now. We don't need this. And so we went and we visited CU. And when we got there, they really just, showed us everything, not only about the company and how much it was respected in the community, but really like how this would be valuable for Maurice's career, the opportunities that he would have to grow there. They showed us around Springfield. They took us to places that are some of our most beloved places in Springfield. They took us to Commercial Street and downtown, and local favorites like Askinoski. And, they really took the effort to make us feel welcome, to make it feel like this could potentially be our future home. They acknowledged that this was an important decision for me and my career and my family, and they gave us time to consider and contemplate that. And so I just felt like they put a lot of time and effort and intentionality in encouraging Maurice to apply for a position, one, because they knew how valuable he would be for the company, but two, because they wanted to show how valuable this opportunity for my husband would also be an opportunity for our whole family. And so that really resonated with me. I don't think that we had ever been so heavily, just such an emphasis on trying to make us feel like this is a place that you can come, look at all the wonderful things that are here, hear all the wonderful opportunities that you have. We are not ignoring your wife or her family or the career ambitions that she has, but we think that, all together, this would be a wonderful opportunity for you. So, I think that intentionality is what convinced us to move to a place that was never on our radar, and frankly, never probably would have been on our radar.
So as far as your experience once you got here, and you guys have been here now 3 years, is that right?
Yes.
Yes. So can you talk a little bit about how the experience has been once you were on the ground?
So in general, we have been very welcomed by, I think, most specifically, like our peer and our professional groups. but we have also experienced explicit racism, which is shocking, you know, when you move to a new place, because you kind of are in this honeymoon phase. Like, you might know, like, oh, the diversity statistics are low, and, you know, you don't know what to expect. You hear stories, but you're giving it the benefit of the doubt. Like, it's not going to be somewhere that you wouldn't want to stay for a long time. And for those of you who've probably heard my husband share this story, we had been here for a couple months, and my parents were visiting for the first time. We were visiting Cider Days on Walnut Street downtown. And we walked out, my 5-month-old baby in tow, and a group of guys drove by in a car and yelled the N-word out to us. And so it wasn't surprising, because I grew up in a biracial home, and so I'm used to those kinds of experiences. But I think it was just mostly shocking because we were new to the community. It was the middle of the day, and at an event that was widely attended by people from all over the community. We're there with a baby and, our family. And so it was definitely, an unexpected experience. But we have decided to stay, and we've so far made this our home because we have built such great community here. People have really made an effort to connect us to the community, to introduce us to people that are like us, that share our culture, that have the same experiences and background as us. They've opened doors of opportunity for us to be involved in community service. They've shown that they think that even though we're newcomers, that the things that we have to offer are valuable. And so, and in addition to that, it's a convenient place to live. There's wonderful things to do here. You get kind of an urban city setting, but the convenience of a slow-paced Midwest town, a lot of access to the outdoors, all of which are things that we cherish and utilize every weekend. And so those things have helped us to stay here. The community that we've built and the people who have shown like we're valuable here and they want us to stay here. So that is definitely an incentive to make this our home permanently.
Well, I had not heard your husband share that story before. So I'm so sorry. And I'm, glad that otherwise, for the most part, I know you guys have gotten really plugged in, and I'm really thankful that you're here. Bill, you're from Jefferson City. You also moved here not too long ago, and your reason was for family. Can you talk a little bit about your first impression and maybe things that could be done to be more welcoming?
In Jefferson City, there are these neighborhoods that, if you move in, then there's usually someone that comes and rings your doorbell, and they've got a little welcoming gift and, that kind of thing. And we originally moved to Nixa, into a very nice subdivision there. So we didn't have that kind of experience, and that might be something. Maybe it happens and I'm just not aware of it, but didn't get that kind of feel. And that said, again, when I decided to start my business, I contacted a guy who was basically a total stranger, and he was certainly willing to help me out. And so I kind of get that kind of small town, warm, fuzzy feeling here in Springfield. That said, I haven't had Krista's experience, but something close. And so I know that, there's a reality out there that, that said, we've made this home, and we're very comfortable here. And as of now, I'm a sole proprietor. I'm at the point where I need to consider whether I'm going to expand my business. As we go forward and deal with this COVID issue more, I'll be looking to make that decision as to whether I'm going to expand. And if so, I'll be, coming around and contacting schools and OTC and different places to promote my business.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Brandon, you're from St. Louis. You came here to go to Missouri State and stayed because of an internship with Jack Henry. So it's 14 years later. Can you speak a little bit about what has kept you at Jack Henry specifically as an employer, and touch a little bit on about the Mosaic of People group that you're president of?
So what keeps me at Jack Henry is the same day one as it is day whatever 15 years later, is the people, right? The family atmosphere. I stepped on the campus in Monette, Missouri. I had never heard of Monette, Missouri a day in my life. I barely heard of. Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
I barely heard of Springfield, Missouri, but Monette, and I love the campus. I love the way the people were. It wasn't diverse necessarily, but they didn't treat me any different, you know, and it was a big organization to be a part of. And today, all the more, they've wrapped their arms around me and never let me go. I've always felt appreciated. I've always been in an opportunity to invest in people, and that's been another pleasure of being a part of Jack Henry. And then recently, roughly about a year, 2 years ago, I am president of a group we call Business Innovation Groups. There are 5 of them, but Business Innovation Groups, and they're circled around a particular focus point, right? Mine is called Mosaic of People. It was originally called People of Color at Jack Henry. And so it was, as you guys can understand from the naming convention, it was supposed to be for the minorities in the organization. And one of the things that really caused me heartburn and sleepless nights was the naming convention. I've never been a person who wanted to segregate. I always wanted to build unity and to unify. And the name People of Color at Jack Henry, although I get the point of it, I really thought that it would be more of a negative connotation, especially being at a company where it's predominantly white. And so we thought of Mosaic because it was a beautiful picture, right, of all these different colors, nationalities coming together to paint a gorgeous picture, right? Some fragments are different shapes and different shades, but it's beautiful when it's all together. And that's how we view Jack Henry, right? It's a microcosm of what we want Jack Henry to be. Everyone working alongside one another, using our differences as reasons for interest. And our power is in the differences that we all share and the uniqueness that we bring to the table. And that's what Mosaic is. It's really an opportunity for people to have conversations, as I was thinking earlier, and talk about the differences between us, and using those differences to further the business, right? It's a business innovation group. You can see that study after study where the company is more diverse, it's way more impactful, it's way more successful. And then on top of that, it is a place where people feel appreciated and wanted, right? Our motto really is to cultivate a diverse corporate environment where all input is valued, the power of differences is embraced, and the diverse ideas drive market growth through innovation. There are a lot of key words in there, but it's basically based around the power of diversity and how we use that to innovate and to further Jack Henry. And that's what we see Mosaic doing. It's had a wonderful effect on the organization, especially through the craziness going on in the world with Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and many other situations. But that's Mosaic.
Thank you for sharing that. I feel like that's a practice that any business could put into place. Doug, similar to Jack Henry's business innovation groups, Commerce Bank has employee resource groups. Could you talk about those, and also your newest and largest group called Vibe, and give us a little bit about the goals of those groups and what you're hoping comes out of them?
Yeah, sure. So we have 4 employee resource groups, and the one thing I tell most folks who want to talk about this, I name them a little different because I think they're employee relationship groups. I'd change the R from resource to relationships because I think it's what it's all about. We started with this concept probably 5 years ago with an ERG called Rise, which was focused to females in our company to give them a landing spot to have conversations and networking and opportunities to create mentoring opportunities and just learning opportunities. We followed that up with one called Emerge, which is for young professionals. So those of you who are in Springfield that understand what the network is at the Chamber, it's much the same as that. It's young professionals who are able to build programming and, look for career tracking and mentoring and, just share common opportunities to discuss common issues. We followed that up with one called Vibe, which is the one that I am our executive management sponsor of. And that's really, it's called multicultural. And so, it attracts people who have all different kinds of ethnicities, people of color, different, demographics within that. So that group has grown. It's only been in existence for about a year to 18 months now. We followed that up with one we started this year called Pride, and it's for the LGBTQI plus community. And, that's one that we've been super excited about because it's grown very rapidly within our company. Originally these were created as, opportunities for people with common thoughts to get together and have an area just to talk, right? And to get to know each other. We've learned a lot through this process. One of the things about inclusion and diversity in our company is a sense of belonging is incredibly important for an organization to be strong. And these, ERGs have really created that. Just as Brandon talked a minute ago, Vibe has, as you can imagine through this year with all the issues in our society, been a very valuable resource for us to have what I would call some very dynamic, courageous conversations. And as the leader of that, I have learned a lot, and it's been a really great avenue for folks within our company to, express, whether it's a concern or, just a point of view, right? The other thing about the ERGs I think that are very valuable is each one of the ERGs has a group of allies that can be a member. So I'm a member of all of them. And so if you think about Vibe, so multicultural, right? About half of the participants or members are multicultural. The other half are allies. And there's a lot of power in allies groups. If you think about just the amount of learning, and we've talked a lot this afternoon about understanding perspectives, and just to hear about other folks' perspectives and how they have lived their life and their experiences through those allies creates a whole nother set of folks who now understand, who really want to make our company continue to be a more strong and diverse group, our company. So that's really the history of them. We do a lot of employee surveys over the years. We're very driven by that as an organization to make sure that we're seeing strong results and making sure that as a group of associates that we all enjoy working here. And these ERGs have really improved scores around, longevity at the company, inclusion and diversity, a feeling of belonging. Our culture has only strengthened because of these. And we have a very strong culture to start with, but, that's really the background behind them. And I'd be happy to, take more questions around that if some come up. But, it sounds like Brandon is leading exactly what we have with Vibe. And I'm glad he's had such a good experience with it too, because I think it's been outstanding.
We don't have that much more time, and I know we still have so much we'd love to talk about, but for companies that were looking to launch something similar, especially if the company was much smaller than Jack Henry or Commerce, do you guys have any words of advice on how to get going on something like that, or maybe something you've learned in the process that you wish you had known when you were getting started? Do either of you have input there?
So the thing I would say is be genuine, and you better be doing it for the right reasons, and be transparent about it, and stick with it. These aren't just fly by night kind of opportunities. You have to mean it, and you have to be genuine, and there has to be some. I think they have to be also supported at the highest levels of the company explicitly.
At the executive level, all the way down. And on top of that, I would say the last thing is be genuine, support it, but also there has to be a place in which people realize that the point of this is to unify. It's not to just have a word vomit session, but to really be focused on bringing understanding and education for the purpose of being brought together, not to divide and cause a wedge to be thrown in.
Thanks for that. So just to wrap up, because we have about 10 minutes, so I want to make sure that we hear from each of you before we wrap. You know, hiring a diverse talent pool and creating these resource groups are all really good parts of the equation, but a continuous effort to get involved with the local Black community, or just finding ways to bridge and reach out to people that you want to get to know better. Can you guys each just speak a little bit to organizations or groups you'd suggest others could look into plugging into, and or just any other ideas you have that could really help all of the people listening today? This will be also on demand for people to view later, ways that they can take some action to help within their own business with these efforts. And Christa, we'll start with you.
So for me, I'm a really big advocate of children and mentorship. I can't remember if it was Brandon or Doug that mentioned this before about, you know, our colleges having such a great potential for a pipeline here. And so we really need focus on recruitment efforts of those individuals. But I also think that that starts even younger at the local level. So mentorship through organizations like Big Brothers Big Sisters of Springfield, which is one of the premier Big Brother Big Sister clubs in the nation, as well as Boys and Girls Club. Like, these organizations are desperately looking for mentors all the time. And if we invest in our youth, then we can shape, you know, what the next generation, how they're going to address these issues in the future. I also really love the Springfield Public School Foundation, because again, Springfield Public Schools is the biggest school district in the state of Missouri. And so the foundation supports a lot of efforts that impact children all over this community. And when they see that other people from the community are contributing to and volunteering and pushing these efforts along, they're incentivized to stay here and give back. I also really like Ambassadors for Children and Prosper Springfield. Both of these organizations are very in tune with the needs of the community. They offer educational programs and a lot of resources to help. And so there's a lot of opportunity to not only volunteer, but to get educated and to to get information. And all of those things are really, really important, I think, in making our community flourish, because as we support the younger generation, I think that really incentivizes the growth of this community in the future.
Thank you. I thank you for giving the, some ideas on some really great organizations. And maybe those are things we can list when we post this video later of organizations people could reach out to for specific opportunities like you mentioned. Doug?
Yeah, so, I mean, Christa is absolutely right. I'm very active at the Boys and Girls Club and with Big Brothers and Big Sisters. I mean, there are an infinite amount of opportunities to help a kid. And I think, a lot of what we're working on, starting with kids is a great place to start. It's a lot harder to change some old people's minds, right? But there are lots of opportunities. Minorities in Business is another good organization here in town that we're very active in. And that's a great way to network with small business owners and, others related to kind of businesses around our community. Samuel Knox is the leader of that. And if you reach out to that organization, you can quickly get involved. There are lots of opportunities to get out of your comfort zone in this community that probably many of us don't. And I would say one of the best ways to make a difference is go up and talk to somebody you've never met before that doesn't look like you. And, I think if we all did that a little bit more, I think as a community, I think the folks that are in the minority populations would feel a lot more comfortable. And I think some of us that are in the majority populations would learn a lot. And so I really think that it's a lot simpler than sometimes we think it is. But, there's all kinds of places in communities like Springfield to go get out of your comfort zone and go learn something.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bill?
Oh, I can't disagree with anything I've heard here today. I think those are all great ideas. Springfield Public School System is the largest school system in the state. And I know that there are programs that, currently exist that try to reach some of those areas. I think it would help businesses if they got more involved and tried to connect with some of those outreach programs, thinking toward the future, in terms of diversifying their employees, having more inclusion, and striving for equity. That's the big. I think that's the big thing. And I don't think you can wait until they get to college level before you start trying to tap into those resources, identify talent, help to grow that and nurture that talent, and hopefully make it part of your organization.
Thank you. Brandon, we'll end with you. I have to ask you, is your daughter's name Braylee?
Yes.
Okay, our daughters played soccer together. My daughter is Lucy, and I keep thinking, I'm like, you look so I know you, and it's because we cheered for our daughters together. I think 2 different seasons.
That's right. That's right. Small world.
Oh my God. And you guys got a puppy right before we got ours, and so your wife
That's right.
chatted a lot about puppies and
I love it.
get them to sleep through the night, and so.
I love it.
Anyway, sorry, I was like racking my brain. I'm like, I know, Brandon. So can you share a few tips?
Yeah, so you guys hit all on the several of the organizations that I would have suggested, but I will say this, and 2 things predominantly. Number 1, invest in your current employees, right? Look internally, listen to what they have to say for the minority people who came to the organization, regardless of the population that looks like them, right? Listen to them, understand what they need, what they see as opportunities for improvement, right? And then secondly, talent and recruitment. I know that Christa said something earlier, but people who represent your organization, I'm going to these fairs and these job fairs, career days, should be more diverse, right? If you want diversity, because as a person coming from St. Louis, Missouri, where it's predominantly, where I'm from, predominantly Black, and going to Springfield, it was a shock. And the only thing I thought about after I graduated was going back to St. Louis. Freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, my thought was to go back to St. Louis. Well, it'd be good if I went into these career days, these local companies, and seeing more diverse people represent the organization. It may have caused me to think twice about leaving Springfield as quickly as I could. So I think that we're missing out on a great opportunity in reaching the talent pool before they fly out of here to the larger cities that they're coming from.
Thank you. You guys have all been just so authentic and really sharing your hearts and perspectives today. I really appreciate it. I know anyone that's been viewing, I know they've probably had a lot to learn too and had a lot of takeaways from this. So I just can't thank you enough in being such champions of diversity efforts in our community and beyond. And hopefully we start to see even better things start to develop. Thank you again to our presenting sponsor, OTC Center for Workforce Development, and of course to American National and Blue Current Credit Union for making this conversation possible today. If you don't already subscribe to Biz 417, we'd love to have you do that, or sign up for our Biz Break e-newsletter that comes out each Monday. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and I hope I can see you all in person sometime soon.